Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new season of the Purposeful Life Show with your host, Adrian Starks. I'm excited to share some new updates of the show with you, starting with a new look, sound, and energy, as well as a variety of guests coming aboard with intriguing topics of conversation. I hope you enjoy the new level of energy that will be brought to the show. Thank you for all of your support since the very beginning in 2019. Wow, it's been 3 years already? Because of you, the Purposeful Life Show is now in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, and we aim to get it into the top 1%. Continue listening to the show and share it with others. You can also now listen to the show on my Facebook page at Adrian Starks, where you can comment in real time and communicate with me about your aha moments. Thank you again for all of your support, and let's make this one hell of a year and be purposeful about doing that. Wishing you all much love and success. The world of business is built upon relationships. Our businesses cannot succeed without support from other businesses and customers. Why is it hard to expand our businesses? Make profits. Do you find that your business could use some help? Are you thinking of just do it yourself or developing long-lasting partnerships? Stay tuned for a brand new episode, Collaborating in Business for Success. Hi, my name is Adrian Starks, and welcome to the Purposeful Life Show on the Champion Up Podcast. This podcast is for the courageous creators wanting to create a life of meaning, adventure, and fulfillment, all while helping to make the world a better place. I'm happy you're here, and if you're new to our show, make sure to give us that 5-star rating and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Also, connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Champion Up. It is always that one idea that could be your breakthrough. It's time to step into your courage and believe the champion in you. Welcome to the Purposeful Life Show on the Champion Up Podcast. I am your host. My name is Adrian Starks, and I'm so happy to have you back for another amazing episode of Courageous Creators. Before we get started today, make sure to give us that 5-star rating and subscribe to the show so you don't miss out on the amazing content coming to you weekly. Today is a very special episode because we're going to talk about collaborating in business for success, meaning partnerships, sponsorships, relationships, all these good things that can help enhance your business. And we have a spectacular guest on, an expert in this field, and her name is Charmaine Hammond. Charmaine, can you say hello to our guest today?
Hello, and thank you so much for having me on today.
We're excited to have you on, and a little bit about Charmaine here. Charmaine Hammond is a highly sought after business keynote and workshop speaker and business owner who teaches the importance of developing trust, healthy relationships, and collaboration. She's also an expert in helping businesses and organizations grow their impact through collaboration and sponsorship. She's a best-selling author and a champion for many. Welcome to the show today, Charmaine.
Thank you. Excited for this conversation.
Well, I'm excited. I hope that our audience today is excited too, because I want to talk about the collaboration in the business world. And this also too can relate to our personal lives. But we're going to get into the business of things here first. And so I'm very excited to have you, Charmaine. Can you share with our audience a little more about what exactly is that you do?
Well, my life now is very different than when I started out in the professional world. Like many people listening, we've had many career paths. And my first career path was actually as a correctional officer. I worked in jails.
I did not know that.
See, I thought that might surprise you.
Well, it has.
So that was not a collaborative environment, I just want to say. But it inspired me to really start learning about working better together with people in collaboration and how we can achieve more quicker and bigger impact when we work with others effectively. And then from there, I worked in government and had a role where I was responsible for facilitating the partnerships and collaborations with different NGOs, governments, businesses, and nonprofits. And I loved it. I loved the process. And fast forward a number of years later, I was a mediator, which is a highly collaborative process when you bring people in conflict together. And then I opened my own business 22 years ago. And so what I do now is I work with not only entrepreneurs, but businesses to help them figure out how to build powerful, impactful collaborations, how to partner with others, whether that be groups, communities, businesses, funders, and how to leverage their brand and create bigger impact through collaboration.
I love that. That's a different approach that I'm hearing from you of creating or improving your brand, building your brand by creating more impacts and partnerships with other people. And so you teach the importance of developing trust and healthy relationships within businesses, Charmaine. I love this.
Yeah, it's so important.
The word, it is. And what I'm finding out also is that the word trust is coming up a lot now in the world of business. And why do you think this is considered to be one of the top priorities with relationships in businesses?
I think that's such a great question. And it gets me thinking about how accessible people are now through social media. So, for example, people are on all the time. There isn't as much privacy in our lives. People openly share and do their rants when they're upset about something. But all of these actions can either increase trust or reduce trust. So because we're showing up in the world in many different ways now, trust is becoming more and more important. And one of the things that I'm hearing from the organizations and businesses that I do a lot of work with is that when they find a person, a professional company that they have high trust for and they see as having high integrity, they are much more likely to continue doing business with them for a long time, which is great from a business and entrepreneur perspective, because as you know, it takes a lot of time to develop these long-lasting relationships. So not only building trust, it's maintaining trust. So how you show up with your clients, how you show up in the world, again, either increases trust or damages it.
Increases trust or damages it, and how you show up with your clients on a consistent basis. That is so important for us to know, because we have been in this reality of, well, business is business. And I'm going to say this, there are some people out here, Charmaine, that have the excuse, and they will say this to many people, well, it's just business, nothing personal. Could this be actually hurting their businesses by thinking that kind of way and not building the trust they need to be building with people?
That's interesting. And I love that question, because it gets me thinking about when we talk about business is about relationship. And we as people come into that. So I've been told things like separate business from your personal life, show up this way, act this way in your own life. And I thought, when we act out of integrity, when we have two different ways of being, we're not being congruent. And imagine how that impacts trust. When people see you, take for example, networking events. If people see you in one way at a networking event and then you show up to work with them as a client and you're acting completely different, this minimizes trust. So back to your question, I think it's really a challenge to, when we say it's just business is about relationships. And so there is a personal quality that comes into it. And I have found that when things go sideways in business, when challenging times arise, the relationship is often what carries you through.
Yes, the relationship is what carries us through. Speaking of relationships, Charmaine, I recall a time when it was about maybe 7 years ago, when I was getting to the industry of speaking, and I was just like this little puppy. I was so excited. I just wanted to help people and motivate people, and I'm much different now. I still love to help people. I'm more about inspiration, and really I have a plan, I have a vision, I have this, what I'm doing now with the podcast of helping others get their messages out there. But during this time, I was able to have dinner, or I was sitting at a table with a group of people, and I had the pleasure of sitting next to one of the top speakers of that time. This was in the United States. And I remember sitting next to her, and I was just waiting for the moment for her to talk to me. And then all of a sudden she puts her fork down, she turns over to me, she says, "I know you're sitting next to me for a reason." She goes, "What are you all about? What's your thing? What do you want to do?"
Wow.
And I started going on and on and on about how I wanted to help people in speaking and to inspire and to really change lives, and that it was my purpose, it was my vision, it was everything. And she kind of slammed her hand down on the table and she said, "Stop right there. This is not a purpose. This is not about anything like that. This is business. You need to build a business." And if you don't build a business, then you're just playing around. I was crushed by that, Charmaine. I really felt like this person didn't care that I was so passionate. It was more about, are you going to build a business or what?
Yeah.
So I carried that with me for a while. And, you know, there is some truth to what she said. I mean, as entrepreneurs, and you know this, as business owners, we are needing to build our businesses so that we can help more people. That's why we do it. However, if we don't walk from it from a state, like you were saying, of trust, leading with our hearts first, and building these relationships so that we can build our businesses further, then we're going to lose out on what's really important. We're not going to win that trust with people. And guess what? I haven't talked to her since then. So, I mean, she's supposed to be a great person, and I hope that she's doing well, but I haven't talked to her since then. And so that passion I had, I still have to this day. But speaking of passion, Charmaine, you really set out to build healthy relationships that often, more than not, lead into collaborations or sponsorships between people and businesses. What made you decide to want to do this kind of work? Because it sounds like it's very challenging.
It's challenging, it's fun, and it's purpose-driven. So I'm going to wrap a comment up in my answer based on the story you just shared, Adrian. And one of the things that I've heard from many corporate brands and corporate sponsors is that they have got behind projects that I'm working on because of my passion for whatever that project is and my sense of purpose to making a bigger difference in the world by collaborating with others. And I have had sponsors, corporate sponsors, say things like, Charmaine, I don't know how we're going to support your project. I don't know how we're going to work together, but we are a yes. We are in. And we had no clarity yet on what that collaboration was going to look like. But what was prompting that commitment was the fact that I was excited about the project I was working on. I was passionate about the difference the project could make. And there was a sense of purpose that was woven through the whole project. And that sense of purpose was what brands could align with. So what got me excited about doing this work was time after time seeing the results of what happened when two entrepreneurs, two organizations, a group of people with a shared vision or goal come together. The results you can achieve are not even remotely close to what would happen if you were to tackle it on your own. And so I just see that we can have such a bigger impact and make a bigger difference together. And for those folks listening today that are like you, Adrian, that they have a big purpose and a big mission that they want to fulfill when they're on this planet, imagine what happens if you have 10 other influencers who are as committed about your project as you are.
That is true influence. That's what it's all about, to be able to make that impact in your world and the planet. And I love the fact that you brought that up. You know, I love the idea of collaborations because, as we mentioned before, it's not easy in the world of business to build something from the ground up. And this is why it takes a while for us to do this, but many people see the byproducts of what we're doing. They don't see what's been going on underneath the surface. And what goes on underneath the surface are the relationships that you're building along, in the midst of all that. It's like that story of the bamboo tree, that it took it 5 years to grow, to take it 5 weeks to grow. It sprouted up in 5 weeks because within 5 years, it was building its roots underground.
Right.
So it could be strong enough so it could go up in 5 weeks. And when we're building these relationships, it's like we're connecting the roots together so that we can be stable, so that we can rise in our businesses and organizations. And this is how I see you with collaborations and sponsorships, Charmaine. What makes collaborations and sponsorships so beneficial? I mean, I know you touched base on it briefly just momentarily, but what really about it makes it beneficial to someone?
Well, when we think about sponsorship, and maybe I'll give a quick definition so that folks listening have a sense of what I mean when I use that term. So sponsorship is a marketing relationship where an entrepreneur, a nonprofit group, a charity, a community project may partner with different brands or businesses. And what the business is getting out of it is some kind of a marketing return on investment, or a marketing goal is achieved for them. So maybe that company wants to get in front of new clients, or have some PR, or sell more products, or drive people to their retail location, or maybe they just want to have a sense of goodwill and community support. But it's a relationship. It's not a financial transaction. It's sort of like you're helping the sponsor. At the same time, that sponsor is helping your project, your business dream get off the ground. And so the reason that sponsorship can be and collaboration can be so powerful is that if you're the sponsor seeker, you can leverage relationships that that sponsor has. You can leverage internal supports. They'll probably support you with either in-kind or cash support or both. And imagine how that increases your ability to launch what it is that you're working on in terms of your projects and your dreams. And from the sponsor perspective, you're able to help connect them with their perfect audiences, help promote them as a business who does good in the world, to support and tell their story. When sponsorship is done right, when collaboration is done right, what happens is that there's sort of this web of other parties that start to become involved. So for example, I'm working on a project right now, and one of the partners has now brought in 5 of their partners, companies that they work with all the time, to be a part of this project. Now, I had no relationship with those 5 businesses, and it would have taken me probably years to get in front of these groups. And yet the sponsor picked up the phone, made a quick call, and a week later I'm on the phone with all of them. So there's this benefit of moving things quicker and in a more supportive way. Sponsors are deeply committed to what they put their name behind. So if things go sideways or what you hoped to achieve wasn't quite looking like it was going to do that, it wasn't going to meet those goals, your sponsor will step in and support you. And we've had that once. We were doing a kindness tour, Adrian, and we had 40 school presentations booked across North America, and the school division went on strike. There was no school during the tour. So we had 40 events that we had promised our collaboration partners and sponsors that weren't going to happen. They all scrambled together and helped us create other events at groups like Boys and Girls Clubs and Big Sisters and after school programs. And that's an example of what happens with collaboration.
And I love the fact that you mentioned too about also helping sponsors. For the audience listening today, that you're just wanting to get a sponsor, you're wanting someone to fund your project, you got to be very careful with how you're thinking about that, because you're thinking in terms of what they can give you versus what you can offer them in return, because it is a partnership. And I think this is why it's very important that we think of it in this way of not saying, what can I get from them, like money? Because most likely, if you are not able to offer them something in return, it's not going to work in that way. So for people that are wanting sponsorships and also for any type of collaborations, I would encourage you to really look at what Charmaine is talking about. And also we'll give you some contact information for her a little bit later today, where you can learn some more things about this from her and in the right steps to take and what things to avoid. Charmaine, do you recall a moment in your career when you realized that it is much better to learn to collaborate with people than trying doing it on your own?
How long do you have? I have a whole list. Oh my gosh. I remember many of those situations because, like many entrepreneurs and businesses, I get excited about what I'm working on and I just run with it full steam ahead. I'm purpose driven. I'm on fire with this idea. And then somebody usually pulls me back and says, "Hey, Charmaine, have you talked to so-and-so?" And that pulling me back sets me back into that this is a time I need to collaborate. One of the first opportunities that I saw this to happen was I was putting on an event in a community that I was a part of, and the event was supposed to be half a day, and I was the consultant on board to help build collaborations and just get this event for youth. It was a youth conference off the ground, and everything just seemed to be hard work. Like there was a lot of resistance and my ideas weren't quite coming to fruition, and I thought, wow, this is just a struggle, and I couldn't figure out why. And so I started picking up the phone and reaching out to people. And within minutes, I kid you not, there was all kinds of people that, came. I had one phone call, and out of that call developed 4 or 5 partnerships, which led to sponsorships. And that for me was the pivotal reminder of it's really hard work to do things alone. And when you bring on people with different viewpoints, different ideas, different backgrounds and experience. You allow what you're working on to be richer, it's easier, and more people get lined up to support your mission. So that event that was supposed to be half a day turned into a 2.5-day event that actually traveled, parts of the conference traveled to some of the outlying community, the remote communities that were part of this region. That would not have happened if it was left to me planning that event. I would have plugged along and had a great half-day event. And this was an example of relationship, partnering, different viewpoints, and coming together in a collaborative process created just an amazing result that people still talk about. And I want to share, when I talk about amazing result, one of the exercises we had at this event was a kindness booth. And we worked with the youth who had thank you cards and chocolates and flowers and all kinds of things to just spread kindness around this conference. We had these little kindness cards called Kindness, Pay It Forward. 10 years after that event, 10 years after that event, I am running into a college. It's pouring rain. I am almost late for a speaking engagement because of the traffic. And I drop my box of books into a mud puddle. The mud splashes up. I'm covered with mud. And I just wanted to cry, honestly. And this gentleman in the parking lot came up and said, "You look like you can either use a hand or a hug or both." And he helped pick up the books, got me inside, showed me where I could clean up. And he said, "I just wanted to give you this and tell you to have a good day." What he handed me was one of the Kindness Pay It Forward cards from that event 10 years earlier. You can imagine I was a blubbering mess when I received that. I mean, that was just sort of like, wow, this did have impact. Look what that event with all those partners created. 10 years later, the event had impact.
What an amazing story that 10 years later, this card shows up and you're just like, wow, that's what it's doing.
Exactly.
You should always tell that story. I love that story. Let's talk about finances here when it comes to business. I have had many people asking me questions about this regarding, especially entrepreneurs who are starting and wanting to do their startup companies, and they don't have enough money and they say it's hard to do. And we agree. I mean, you need to have some type of finances or capital to start things off, but sometimes you really need to just focus more on relationships, and that could also be part of that support for you.
Yes.
So most people who are starting businesses, they do struggle with finances in the beginning. What word of advice would you be able to give them today if they're struggling? They just feel like, well, maybe this is not for me if I don't have the money for it.
Yeah, and I think all business owners can say they've been there, and generally more than once, where finances are a struggle. And even really healthy, viable businesses, when they launch new projects or expand or grow, there's a definite financial crunch for lots of them. So some of the ways that collaboration can help, whether you're a new startup or whether you're a company that's growing, is that sometimes collaborations can offset some of the expenses that you have. So examples are, I've had corporate sponsors that have provided what we call in-kind support, in-kind sponsorship. Okay. So for example, I had a videographer who did all of our videos as a sponsorship to us. And we had a photographer who did all of my photography. We have a printing sponsor. I have a graphic design sponsor. I had a clothing sponsor for all of my clothing that I would wear to my speaking engagements and book signings. So these actually offset the business costs and, of course, help really increase your influence, because as you're promoting and talking about that sponsor, that collaboration partner, they're talking about you. So it's really a powerful relationship. But then there's other things that businesses can do too. Sometimes there are grants. We've had grants for businesses, whether they be training grants to hire new staff, or expansion grants, or export grants. A lot of times there are grants that will help with different initiatives within a business. And then often there's funding. So there's a lot of different ways. It sometimes means that we have to be creative. One of the pieces of advice I got early on, and sometimes I scratch my head and think, wow, how come I didn't think of that? One of my mentors in the first few years of my business, and I had grown very quickly in my mediation company that I had at the time, from 1 staff to 5 staff. And my business coach looked at our books, looked at what we were charging our clients, and he said, your rates are too low. So we actually needed to look at our whole business model and adjust our rates, but also really look at where we were spending money. At that time, I was signed up for all kinds of memberships, none of them that I attended or went to. So I was paying, a couple $1,000 a month for memberships and networking groups, and I wasn't engaged in them. So I scaled that back and participated in the ones that were powerful and a good fit for me.
Wow. Okay. And the fact that you said your mentor at that time mentioned that you were not charging enough. This is something that I want us to really all take in. The value of what we're offering people in the marketplaces of our world, and that value that you place on your product or service, it becomes the value of how you place on yourself. And it's people really, I've learned this too, Charmaine, that they don't buy necessarily our products directly. They buy the person that is giving the product. They buy the person behind the product. And when you have a low value of yourself and your product, you can only imagine what someone's going to do. I've seen people pay twice as much for something versus pay very little for something, because it is the value of what we bring. And of all the multiple years of you doing this, traveling the world, speaking in front of multiple organizations and businesses, what has it taught you about succeeding in life?
Oh, great question. One of the learnings, and it's funny, I'm one of these people that has to have the real life learning, and then I've got to make the mistake 2 or 3 more times just to prove how important the learning was. I remember years ago traveling to a conference that was a fantastic conference, really well designed by the event hosts. And they had a trade show, like many conferences do, where there were sponsors there, where there were business exhibitors, and I kind of flew in and flew out, did my presentation and left. And my husband was looking through the program guide when I got home, and he said, wow, you must have met some great people. And I thought, oh. And he said, we had a great conversation, because Christopher said, Charmaine, what do you mean you just flew in, did your presentation and flew out? Look at the opportunities that you missed to meet the perfect people. And as I looked through that program guide of all the exhibitors and the other speakers that were there, I thought, he is so right. He is so right. And from that day forward, I decided that whenever possible, I'm going to stick around for most of the event, or all of the event if I can. I'm going to go and meet the people at the trade show booths. And since I've been doing that, my business honestly has transformed. It's created new opportunities for sponsorship, for speaking. And if you're a speaker listening to this, you really look like a rock star to the event host when you are there to support the event and the host and the audience.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up to our speakers, fellow speakers out there, and people who are wanting to be speakers. The event host has one of the hardest jobs in the world.
Yes.
And that is to fill seats, to get people in the right places, to make sure everything is working together. And the last thing that they want is to have their world be made more difficult by someone who is really not working with them.
Yeah.
As a speaker, you should be able to help the event host in some way, make the people there the event host has invited, make them feel part of it. Because what happens too is, and Charmaine's leading into this, is that you build a relationship with the event host.
Yeah.
And if they find you to be a great person to work with, guess what they're going to do? They're going to probably refer you to some other event host.
That's right.
They may have another event and they would say, hey, I've got my speaker already. I don't have to worry about this person. I know they're going to be just fine. I can focus on the other people. This is what it does to you when you build these relationships, even as a speaker and as a business owner. So if you're a speaker, don't think, well, I'm just going to go here and speak and leave. No, build relationships.
Yes.
Build them. And this is what we call courage, the courage to step into those things that make us feel uncomfortable, because even as speakers and leaders, we always walk into the unknown continuously, and there are those discomforts that we have which allow us to grow. But speaking of courage, Charmaine, you have another empowering thing that you do for people, which I absolutely love. And this is helping them to raise a dream. How do you go about making this become a reality for them? Like raising this dream?
I get so inspired when I hear people talk about their dreams. And often it's one little piece that just needs to be put in place for everything to open up for people. So we have a company called Raise a Dream, and Rebecca and I actually work with people to help them get super clear on what their dream is, who their dream will impact, who are the best partners to collaborate with, who are the best sponsors that will get behind this mission. And then we actually have a 7-step model that works over and over and over again. It's sort of like a wash, rinse, repeat. So once you learn these 7 steps, that also teach you how to build these powerful relationships, how to get in conversation with partners that can help you raise your dream. You know, the other thing that we also do is we connect people. A lot of times what's missing, or maybe the roadblock for people in raising their dreams, is they just don't have the right connections. And so I believe that's one of the reasons I love your brand about, you know, Champion Up, because part of what we can do is be a champion for other people. That often a dream that needs to get raised just needs a group of champions behind it, a group of influencers behind it. And that's one of the things we love doing at Raise a Dream.
Love that. And I love how we bring in the word champion. I knew when I was reading looking at your bio earlier, I was like, oh, I just love Charmaine already. And I still do. I will always love you. You're a great person. And this Raising a Dream is an amazing way to help people really build those partnerships and connections, which are important. And for our audience listening, I've had the opportunity to learn from Charmaine and to look at what she's doing and also implement it into my business. And let me tell you, it works.
Hey.
It certainly works. So think about what can you do to help raise your dream a little bit more. And speaking of that, I would love for our audience, Charmaine, to get in contact with you and to find ways of learning from you. And I know that there's an upcoming event you have coming up this month.
Yes.
And some workshops. So what event is that coming up this month that you can tell our audience
about?
So
that's with the Vancouver Business Network, and I'll be speaking on the topic of collaboration and sponsorship, and you'll see lots of information about that on our Facebook page, which is Raise a Dream, and our website's raiseadream.com.
All right. And this is how they can get in contact with you as well?
You betcha. And we're on Twitter and Instagram. I love to hear about people's dreams. So we always encourage people, share your dream with us on social media, because we can start talking about your dream and you never know who we're connected to. That is the perfect person that you need in your champion circle.
Love it. Love it. And to our audience, go to Charmaine's website as well, too. And Charmaine, do you have a personal website?
I do. And my personal website is charmainehammond.com.
And on that website, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to find some amazing content, some amazing articles that she's written. And one of my favorite ones I want to just touch briefly on right here. It's a keynote talk and presentation that she does. And this is called the Communication for Success, Courageous Dialogue. Now, there's a lot of things going on in that phrase that I love, but the courageous dialogue really gets me. So just go to her website, check out that part of it. And then if you have any questions, reach out to her. If you're interested, I would assume that you would be, to have her come speak at your organization at some point and to really allow her to help you to create some courageous dialogue between you and your staff members. Charmaine, this has been an absolutely wonderful time on the show today, and there's so many things that I have learned personally through the power of partnerships. I'm sure our audience has learned, and I want to thank you for sharing that information with us.
Thank you so much, and I so appreciate your rich questions. They got me thinking and really reminded me some things I need to do again. Thank you for that, Adrian.
You're absolutely welcome. And we have one more question that our audience always waits on. They're like, when is this question coming? And to my ladies and gentlemen here, it always comes at the end. This is called the Courageous Creator Question. Right, it's a question that I really think deeply about. I mean, I think about all my questions deeply, but this one, I really spend time to personalize it for the person that I'm interviewing. This is why I call it the Courageous Creator Question. So the question for you, Charmaine, is what can happen in a business when it focuses its attention on building trust in its relationships more than just focusing on making money?
Ooh, that's a juicy question. Oh, what can happen in a business? I think it can bring a business when you focus on trust and on relationships. If you have staff, they will be happy staff. They will be people that are committed to your company's goals and vision and values. You allow people to grow with you instead of growing with the competition. Another thing that happens when you when you foster trust and relationships, there's less conflict. There's less drama that we have to deal with. And clients and customers are happier. They good gossip about you, and they stay loyal. And in a time where information flows so easily and so quickly, these are important aspects. And I think as a business owner, listening, when you create trust and you create relationships, honestly, work is just easier.
Work is just easier. And another fact is that we grow as an organization as opposed to growing into competition. And that is so powerfully said there, Charmaine. And this is why you are a courageous creator on this show, and you're creating so much impact. Thank you so much for being an amazing and spectacular leader.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And to our audience today, I hope you have learned a lot about what it takes to build a successful business. And that clue is relationships. And part of that steers into trust and reliability. And if you're a person that's out here and you're wanting to start a company or start a business, realize that yes, you can find sponsors, you can find people who can support you, but also what can you support them with? This is a give and receive system, a cycle of life. We can't evade that. So don't think in terms of what people can give you, think in terms of what you can offer them and how you can work together, a win-win situation. Until then, I encourage you all to build those collaborative relationships in your businesses and to be that courageous creator in your life. This is the Purposeful Life Show and the Champion Up Podcast with myself, Adrian Starks, and thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed our podcast today, don't forget to give us that 5-star rating and subscribe to the show so you don't miss out on the powerful life-changing content on future episodes. Also, make sure to go to championup.net for even more life-changing content. Until then, I encourage you to be the courageous creator in your life.